Today I'm going to be making a very old classical French dessert. That would of course be the creme caramel. Creme caramel is a cooked custard, and to start with we have to make a toffee. So I have 3/4 of a cup of sugar, caster sugar, and we'll place that just in a pan, or if you got a pot you could use that, and just adding 3 tablespoons of water. And we'll let that bubble away, and that should take around 5 to 6 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the colour of toffee you want. So while that's bubbling away, we'll start with the eggs. Now I need 4 egg yolks for this recipe and 2 whole eggs. So this is, again, like I said, a custard, and I actually prefer this than the creme brulee, and a lot of people would be like, what? How could you compare it? But I actually really like the texture of this because it's quite silky and smooth and less rich like the cousin of this, which is creme brulee. So we're going to break these eggs into a bowl, and we're going to whisk that with 125 grams of caster sugar. So I'll just break 2 whole eggs to this. Straight in there. We'll get that out of the way, and the 125 grams of caster sugar. And now this is where you do your daily exercise. I've got a whisk here. So we'll whisk these together until they're nice and thick, and then of course we're going to keep an eye on this caramel. You don't want to walk away from caramel because you don't want it to burn. So by the time that's finished, this caramel will be nice and glossy and golden brown, and then we can start lining our moulds. So this caramel is almost ready, it's moments away. And while that's happening, I'll just place half a litre of milk into a pan, and I'll add also a vanilla pod, and we'll just bring that just before boiling point. So again, keep an eye on that. That caramel is a nice, rich colour. Look at that. So what we do now is carefully pour that into the base of our mould. Okay, so it's very hot, so just let that cool slightly. And here to the vanilla pod, a little trick, just warm it up in between your fingers like this, just to release all those seeds. And I'll cut that in half, just with a small paring knife. We'll scrape the seeds out. You can see how much you get out just from that. I love the smell. Fresh vanilla, nothing beats it. Into that milk, I place the whole vanilla pod into the milk also, just to infuse it. So once that comes up to a boil, just before boiling point actually, we'll start adding it to our eggs. So the milk is just coming to the boil now, so I turn it off. And a little trick when you're in the kitchen by yourself and you need to whisk in the hot milk to the eggs, just place a tea towel, just a damp tea towel underneath the glass bowl, and that'll ensure that it won't move. And then we pour this hot milk, consistently stirring this, pour all of that in, and we've just left that vanilla bean straight in there because we don't want to be eating that. And give that a good whisk. Make sure it's all combined. You don't want to leave any of that egg mixture down the bottom. What you can do at this stage is actually place this through a fine sieve and just get rid of all those speckles of vanilla bean. However, I actually like it. I think it gives it quite a nice characteristic, so I'm leaving that as is. One thing I do recommend, however, is grabbing yourself a ladle and just taking off all of that froth on the top, and that'll just give us the pure custard. It'll also make sure it won't burn on top. So just to help us in pouring these into the mould, I'll place all of that custard mixture into a jug, and we'll pour this on top of that caramel. You can see that caramel is rock hard now, and evenly distribute that. Now we're placing this in the oven at about 160 degrees. You don't want a hot oven for this. Don't forget it's eggs and milk, so we don't want that to curdle or scramble. So a low oven, and we'll also place these custards into a bain-marie. And for those who don't know what a bain-marie is, it's just a baking tray like this. We fill it up with water, and I've also placed a little piece of A4 paper down here, and this will make sure the water in the bain-marie stays at a consistent heat. That's another little thing that'll help it stay at the right temperature. In with the water, about halfway up, and we will carefully place our custards into the water. 1, 2, 3. So now we'll cook them for about an hour and 15 minutes in the oven, and we want to allow them to cool after they've come out of the oven. Then we can put them into the fridge, allow them to cool completely, and then they're ready to eat. So they've baked in the oven, we've allowed them to cool, place them in the fridge so they're nice and cold, and now this is for the moment of truth. We now have to demold it. So number one, we just loosen it up on the sides just by easing it away from the edges, just like this. There's no mucking around at this stage. We're placing the plate on top, and just give it a bit of a jiggle and then turn it over. Two little taps just like that. And you can see straight away the plate is flooding with the caramel. So we'll just take that off. You can actually hear it almost detaching from this ramekin, and there you have it. Oh, that, for me, is so dramatic. Once you've done this, you get almost this sense of achievement, because creme caramel is quite an easy dish to do. It's just demolding it that sort of scares people or put people off. However, just detaching it and giving it a good shake will result in this, the perfect creme caramel. You know, this never goes out of fashion. It's that silky smooth texture that goes so well with the bitterness of the toffee. And don't forget the vanilla bean. That is something that will never go out of fashion, especially in my family.